In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern, and we have seen some changes on the model guidance that we're going to be breaking down. We still expect times of cold air, as we kind of mentioned the last couple of days, and also some opportunities for snowfall. I should stress that this is especially a high chance if you're in the interior eastern states, although we're going to see some guidance today suggest that more coastal areas could see some flakes flying up to a couple of inches. I don't think it's going to be anything too crazy if we get that solution, but we're going to dive into it nevertheless. Also taking a look at some long-range guidance as we've been kind of doing the last couple of days. Now, as we just dive into things, we're taking a look at this afternoon today on Friday, December 6th, and what we see is a positive PNA, but it's a far eastern spread positive PNA with all these areas being warmer. Typically, the more traditional look would be more exclusively for the west coast here. We see that it is stretching a few hundred miles further east than that more typical look that I just mentioned, especially if you move to the south. It's spreading way to the east here, maybe closer to 1,000 miles there. So definitely a pretty large stretch towards the east with this positive PNA. If you've been outside and you're in the eastern states, then it's no surprise that it is colder today, so that shouldn't shock you one bit, but that should be on the way out here very shortly, actually. So as we move towards Saturday, we see it's already lifting off this positive PNA, now spreading its wings kind of towards the east and actually starting to rise up here in the east as well. So it's going to be a very near normal day here for Saturday on the 7th, but and I guess before I move on, I should mention we have a pretty hefty clipper system moving through the northern Great Lakes here for Saturday afternoon. We're going to have to see what ends up happening with this, but as we move towards Sunday, we're going to see our first truly warm day here moving in, for the east at least, that is. Although for the northeast here, like New York and New England, we see we're going to have a pretty nice snow day for the day on Sunday, especially from the morning to the early afternoon time frame, where we could pick up a few inches of snowfall in addition to everything that y'all have seen up there in the north. So this is going to be an interesting, follow-up clipper system. I know we've already had one, and it looks like there could be another one that wants to get going, although it could be pushed too far north with this warm air kind of invading. While this warm air is invading from the south, this is going to bring a very warm day on Sunday compared to what we've been having. We also have really cold temperatures moving into the northwest, and this is really going to help solidify this pattern, actually, that we're looking at on screen here. We've mentioned this probably way too many times, but what happens in the west impacts the east, not the other way around. So when we see this cold air moving into the west, that causes a warming in the east, and we're seeing that happen here. Also, I should mention there's plenty of snowfall for the Cascades, Northern Rockies here, and even portions of Canada as well by Sunday the 8th. As we move towards Monday here, we're warming even further along the eastern states, and this is coming as a result of a cooling pattern in the west that is digging even deeper now. Your trough looking something like this, or your jet stream better yet, where cold air is able to pile into the Rockies, also the northern plains and upper Midwest here, and we see this overall warming trend for the east. Something that leads us to believe that it is going to cool after this point is a warming trend along the very western coast here, and this could push all the cold air towards the east. We're also, meanwhile, getting plenty of much-needed rainfall here for a lot of the deep south and also for the mid-Atlantic, which is good news for Monday. As we reach towards Tuesday, what we end up seeing here is a expanding positive PNA look along the western seaboard. Again, this is a little bit more traditional this time around. And we do see this cold air diving southward here, but it is for the more central states at the moment. We do see a decent little low here over northern Ohio. This is dragging along a cold front here that is pulling that cold air eastward, and we do have a bit of a warm front here to the north. So expect things to be quite warm before they cool down. Again, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday was those main 3 days that we're watching for warmer but more stormy conditions here along the eastern states. But we can tell cold air is moving down and in. So here is Wednesday, when we have some low pressure along the east coast as well. Mostly, though, it's a cold front from this primary low up to the north that is dragging along the entire eastern seaboard. this could set up for a pretty intense area of heavier rainfall along the entire eastern seaboard here. As you can see, from southern Florida up to northern Maine, we have rainfall expected. This could bring some thunderstorms, especially if you're in the southern half of this. Don't be surprised if there is some thunderstorms in there, especially if it's a little bit warmer than anticipated out ahead of this. But you could even see snowfall showers on the back end as we reach the overnight hours. So let's go ahead and do this. Get it kind of towards, this is 10 p.m. on Wednesday, December 11th. And look at the snowfall starting to mix in along this cold front. This is also coming as we see an intensifying secondary low there near southern New England. So we're seeing snowfall as far southward as maybe north central North Carolina into central Virginia, up and down to DC, Maryland, eastern Pennsylvania, and then into eastern New York and New England, western New England especially. Definitely going to be hard for that to accumulate is the hard thing, unless you're in a very high elevation region where we hardly saw any rain or something like that. There is going to be rainfall happening, and there will have been warmer conditions out ahead of this, so going to be tough. We do see even some mixed showers around for areas like South Virginia, Northeast North Carolina, the Delmarva, perhaps Eastern Pennsylvania, and even Southern New Jersey have a chance, according to this GFS model, at seeing some snowfall mixing in. This would be exclusively, almost certainly would only be exclusively flakes flying, not an accumulating situation. Unless you're up here in New England, where we do actually have a little bit more substantial snowfall occurring from eastern New York up through Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and northern Maine. This low continues to be a little bit more intense here for these areas, as you can see right here. So that's definitely something to watch for. But we're going to see a very different solution from the European model. But for now, this is the look on Wednesday into Thursday. Large ridge in the west and another very hefty trough here in the east. This is going to be a little bit of a flashback to the conditions we've been seeing by the time we're reaching the 12th, because this is very deep Arctic air that has now made its way once again into the eastern states. The only problem is it might not be as long-lived this time around. So let's move towards the day on Thursday. Very cool. But as we move towards Friday, we're already seeing it lift on and out. We see a little bit of cooler, more stormy weather for the Northwest, and this could be influencing things, but we're starting to see a warming trend in the central and the eastern states here from south to north. I would say for a lot of these areas, we still have pretty decently cold air. We have another kind of clipper slash snow shower situation up here across the Great Lakes in south central Canada. As we move towards Saturday, it's warmed even further, that clipper system reaching the northeast again, so maybe a third clipper system for them, or fourth by now, I don't even know at this point. But we're back to a warm in the east, cold in the west pattern. But like a revolving door, we see another trough move into the east, just as we get a little bit of a warming trend here across some of the central and more western states. This one is not quite as intense, though. We do get colder air than what's normal, but not even close to as cold as what we're seeing now. The reason it's not digging so deep is probably because we have this cold and stormy weather in the Northwest that's just sitting tight. This does not allow for us to see a purely positive PNA pattern set up whatsoever, so this is the main driving force. Speaking of that storminess out west, I mean the Sierra Nevada, Northern Rockies, Cascades, all seeing heavy snowfall due to a pretty intense low that could be hitting Washington, Oregon around early, not next week, but the week following. As we move towards the afternoon here, some colder air left over for the Northeast, but the real show is out west where we have plenty of cold air. But just like a revolving door, again, we get a low there over the central states, creates a little bit of a more intense snowfall situation maybe for the northern plains and upper Midwest. But we get this dragging cold front. Be on the lookout for severe weather along this, as they tend to do in the wintertime like this, with these cold fronts moving into warmer, milder areas. But we could get another more small trough there, as you can see. That one's actually a little bit more intense than the one before it, but we do see snow showers around. So is it a purely warm pattern moving forward, even through the 22nd on this model? No, not at all. There is that 3-day period of very warm temperatures, another one of maybe 1 or 2 days. But is it a purely cold pattern? Not by any stretch. It's going to be a revolving door pattern, but we're going to see warm up, cool down, warm up, cool down, warm up, cool down over and over and over again. And that's kind of how I see the days and weeks following or leading up to Christmas really at this point. Now, when we look at the European model, we do get some differences, and I'm going to skip us towards those differences. We get that Clipper system moving through, and then here is that kind of cold front slash nor'easter situation, and look at where that low set up. It's about over New York City here by Wednesday afternoon, not Wednesday night, so a little earlier with this storm impact. And we look for Western Virginia, West Virginia, central and western Pennsylvania, and then central and western New York for that snowfall as this storm moves through. Still precipitation from southern Florida to northern Maine, so that doesn't change, but the areas receiving snowfall does. We actually end up with a very heavy northeast Pennsylvania and central and upstate New York snowfall situation. Even the Green Mountains there of Vermont and the Berkshires of Massachusetts cash in on quite a bit overnight. We end up with some lake effect afterwards, but much like the GFS model, we end up with a very quick trough and not a long-term one whatsoever. We end up with this low a little further to the south here. We get snowfall for the upper Midwest and Great Lakes here for the Monday, December 16th timeframe. As we move forward, we get another smaller trough. Here comes another little decent one. And honestly, I would argue this European model is maybe a little bit warmer than the GFS model this time around, which is surprising because for the past, I would say 2 weeks, the GFS model has been the warmer model and the European model has been the colder model, but we've seen kind of a flip here. We'll end up seeing which one's right. They've both had their fair shares of wins and failures over the past, 6 months or so. So I would strongly suggest that you pay close attention to what both are showing and consider both to be possibilities and prepare for either solution, because there's really no telling which one is more on the mark with this upcoming pattern. And there's not too huge of differences between them, but it could lead to different areas seeing snowfall, different areas seeing rainfall, and colder or warmer conditions moving forward. And it's pretty uncertain which one's correct, like I mentioned. Total precipitation does seem to be surging over the Northwest. Still probably not above average, but there is a decent amount. And then still, just like yesterday, the East looks very, very good. Probably even better around these areas where that cold front comes through. Let's take a look here. And sure enough, we end up with, I would say, neutral precipitation, which is very good, near normal here for the Northwest. They've been seeing very dry conditions. And then we see wetter conditions as we reach towards that Canadian border there, and then along a lot of the eastern states. So something like this is the area that we're seeing. So you're dealing with above average, again, near Canada for the most part. The Great Lakes in here in particular, we're seeing quite a large amount. And then also where this cold front sets up, we end up with quite a bit as well. Probably multiple inches just from that event in some spots. Now, for the total snowfall in the GFS model, we actually end up with less than the European. So the GFS model is colder, the European model is warmer, but the GFS model has less snow and the European model has more snow. So I know it's super confusing, but that's just the way I'm seeing it right now. Although the West, all the mountain ranges out here do expect to get quite a bit of snowfall, it's still probably below average unless you're in the Cascades or Northern Rockies at this point. Again, these areas near Canada cash in on most of the snowfall here, much like the precipitation. But the European model, we do get a little bit more, I would say, spread for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast here in particular. But not only that, we also end up with quite a bit more for the overall central and northern plains, as well as the Midwest areas here, where when we look back at the GFS model, it was much further exclusive to the north. We see there's clearly more well to the south here on this European model as opposed to the GFS model. And it's really the same story here for the East when we take a look. It's a lot more expansive with this snowfall. So definitely snowier here on the European model. Even out west, we see for the mountainous areas out here, many more inches for most of these mountain ranges. Now, for the temperature pattern, we see this ongoing cool down followed by a more brief warm up here. Actually, this is one of the more long range ones, sorry. So Sunday the 8th, Monday the 9th, dark reds are about 10 degrees above average. So that is a quite substantial, difference from what we've been seeing. We see slightly above normal conditions here for the eastern seaboard as we're on the fence. We're basically just about to flip over back to cold temperatures here by Tuesday the 10th. So we get these kind of 5 to 10 degrees above normal. And then we get right back into the 10 to 15 to even 20 degrees below normal here for a bit for Thursday, Friday here. It hangs on the East Coast, but by Saturday it's warming back up again. Another intense warm-up coming. Here's Monday, Tuesday the 17th, Wednesday the 18th, Thursday the 19th, Friday the 20th. But here comes some colder air again for Sunday the 22nd. So we start to get more cold air. If we were to look at it as a full model run, which unfortunately you can't do, at least on this website with the GFS model, it would likely be very close to normal for most areas around the nation. But that comes with warmer days and colder days equaling out to around average. It's not going to be near average every single day. It just averages out to that. The European model, like I said, maybe looks a little warmer. Here's that first cool down, followed by a warm up, followed by a cool down, warm up, more intense on this European model. We get colder air in there, but then we start to set up this southeast ridge, this brutal southeast ridge, very, very warm in this case, around the 21st. Meanwhile, we have a positive PNA, but the southeast ridge is in play, and this forces the cold air to really funnel in between. Could it set up this way? Yes, and we have seen it, but I think with this warm out west, we could also flirt with the idea that cold air would be on the move towards the east if we saw this type of pattern set up. So that could be what's on the way for after the 20th as well. We'll keep an eye on all of it. Here's the long range look. So here's the 7th through the 12th. Colder on the east overall, but when we move towards the 12th through the 17th, we get even colder. But for the 17th through the 22nd, we do warm up in the east, again, slightly above normal to near normal for most areas. A little colder along the west. When we reach this 21st through 26th time frame, or I think we need the 22nd through 27th here, we're a bit cooler along the east once again. Here's the 27th through the 1st of January, looking even colder there in the east. But here's the 1st of January through the 6th, still cold, just not quite as cold. Then the 6th through the 11th brings us right back into the more extreme cold. Then here's the 11th through the 16th, even cooler. And then as we move towards the 16th through the 20th, it again tapers back off to a little bit less cold, but still cold in the east. When we look at the precipitation, we're going to have to move a little bit forward to get an actual forecast, but it starts with the central states around the 15th through the 20th, where most of that activity is. Then the East Coast gets going for the 18th through the 23rd approximately. Then the 23rd through the 28th, it dries up a bit with most of our activity over the Rockies, Northwest, Northern Plains, such as those areas. And then as we reach basically New Year's through the 6th, again, a lot of your activities out west were much closer to normal in the east. Same story here. And then really we get averaged out towards the end where this is hard to really take away anything. But that is the overall short, medium, and long range outlooks for now. We upload every single day, so be sure to subscribe. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.